everyone, it's Christy from Green Eyed Tarot, and I am filming a VR to Kelly at the Truth and Story, her hashtag irreplaceabledecks. I'm a little behind on this one, but I feel like this took me a while to really kind of think about it and like look through all my decks and figure out what I would consider an irreplaceable deck. As Kelly said, this is not exactly favorites, like it's not a favorites deck. It's the decks in your collection that really fill like a certain niche and really fill a certain space in your tarot library that really no other deck can. I read Rider-Waite-Smith, so I have a ton of Rider-Waite-Smith decks, Rider-Waite-Smith clones. I mean, there's so many that kind of fill the same purpose for me in terms of just reading tarot on a regular basis. You know, some of them have different vibes, but for the most part, you know, they're decks that follow the same system and are very similar. Artwork might be different. There just might be certain like themes, you know, in the deck that are different, but in the end, they're all Rider-Waite-Smith decks. So I have some tarot decks. I have a bunch of Oracle decks that I feel like probably fit just one space in my tarot library. I don't read a lot of Oracle. I've been culling my Oracle collection down a lot because I just find that I'm not using them. Oracle for me is like very specific, and I'm moving away from just getting Oracle decks because they're pretty or I like the way they look. I really, you know, want to only have Oracle decks in my collection that I'm going to actually use and that can enhance my practice and can be combined with tarot or can be used as standalone, just as Oracle. So I find that I'm tending to not use as much in the way of Oracle decks, but I do have some decks that are like really specific and I feel that are definitely irreplaceable, and I don't think there's anything else that could fill the same need for me. So I'm going to share some tarot and some Oracle. So I'm going to flip the camera around and let's get started. Hey everyone. Okay, so I'm going to start with some Oracle decks first. I apologize for the noise. It's about 91 degrees here today, so the air conditioner is on, so it's a little bit loud, so I do apologize for the background noise, but if I don't have it on, then I'm going to be pretty much sweltering in here. So again, I apologize, but it's really hot out today. So gonna start with an Oracle deck. So this is the Oracle of Essences. So while I'm sure I have, you know, different like herbal decks that feature plants and flowers and things like that. I have the Illustrated Herbiary, which is wonderful. I have the Seed and Sickle, which, you know, obviously features herbs. This one, though, is a little bit different. These are the backs. They're really beautiful. They have these flowers and butterfly. This one to me is a little bit different and kind of fills a niche that I don't feel like the other ones do, in that this deck focuses on like the essential oils and the essences aspect of these plants and flowers. I started working with essential oils maybe about a little over a year ago, just sort of experimenting with different scents and different properties of the different oils, like making roll-ons for myself and room sprays. And I really enjoyed it, and I have really enjoyed it. And I kind of got this deck as like a jumping off point for that. And I just feel like, again, while this is, you know, definitely plant energy, it's more the essential oil aspects of plants and herbs, if that makes sense. So you see you have clove, and then we have there's like two keywords on each card, and then, you know, you have this image. The guidebook, you know, talks about the essences, you know, basically the essential oil, the essences of each plant and herb, and you know, what you can use like in terms of your physical, like how to support your physical health, how to support your physical, your emotional, your spiritual well-being, and then there's a divinatory meaning and then an affirmation in the guidebook. So it really does focus on sort of that just as the title says, the Oracle of Essences, it's like the essence of each flower. So here we have cedarwood. That's one of my favorite essential oils. I like earthy, very grounded. I love vetiver. I love cedarwood. I love oak moss. I love those scents. Those are like ones that I'm specifically drawn to. Neroli is such a beautiful, like floral essence. But these, you know, essential oils can be used for so much, you know, for sensory, for your, you know, for heating them, and for, you know, infusing them into the air, and using them on your pillow and putting them on your clothes. Like there's so many different ways that you can use essential oils and add, you know, just the characteristics of them to your daily life. That, but this deck is so, here's vetiver. Again, vetiver is like literally my favorite scent. I actually have a little roller ball with vetiver inside. So a few parts of vetiver, and I believe this is fractionated coconut oil. I also like to mix with some almond oil and jojoba oil. I use a lot for like the topical applications. So yeah, so this deck is very specific to the essence, and I don't have anything else like it in my collection. Again, I have herbal decks, of course, but this to me kind of hits different, and I don't have anything quite like it. I don't think there's anything else that really kind of fills this niche in my collection of oracle cards, specifically herbal decks. I definitely consider this a irreplaceable deck because of just the way it incorporates the essences of these flowers and plants. And it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. The cardstock is amazing. It's like this matte cardstock. The colors are so saturated. They're so vibrant. I love it. Here's cypress. That's another favorite of mine. Very earthy. Lavender, of course. Turmeric. It's just a really beautiful deck, and it encompasses so many herbs and plants. Again, you know, and really focuses on their essences. So I love this. It's the Oracle of Essences. It's definitely, for me, it's definitely an irreplaceable deck. And I'm sure like many of you have a lot of herbal decks, or decks that focus on plants or flowers, and I feel like, you know, I'm no different, but I definitely, Oracle of Essences is an irreplaceable deck for me. The next one is the Threadbound Oracle. Now this is, again, another, you know, deck that I feel is definitely one that is irreplaceable in my collection. You can see the back, it looks like a thimble, or like a spool of thread. And this one specifically focuses on the suits in here, have all to do with paper, bookmaking, parts of the book. It's very specialized. It's one of those decks, again, I have oracle decks, of course, that have mistakes, forgiveness, mercy, that deal with those, you know, deal with all of those aspects in them, but do not do it quite like this. So there's like characters that you typically find in a lot of books and a lot of stories, you know, just different themes that you find, you know, throughout books. And then you also have those elements of bookmaking and printing, which are like, it's amazing. So here you have the Ace of Paper Pulp. So this is really, truly all about paper making, printing, book binding, bookmaking, and just books in general. So you'll have, like I said, characters. Here we just have the book. Here we have the author, spirituality, devotion, higher powers. So it is very specific. I don't have anything else in my tarot or oracle library that quite comes across the way this deck does. And it intrigued me from the very beginning. First time I saw walkthroughs, I was like, this is a deck about bookmaking and binding and printing and inks. And I was like, this is like so different than anything I've ever seen. And it really is. Here's the Ace of Ink, pigment. So it's just very unique, and I feel is definitely one of those irreplaceable decks. 3 of ink well. So there's an ink well. It's just, here's your 2 of paper page. So a page from a book. It's very unique and fills a very specific niche. I don't think there's anything in my collection that could ever, you know, come close to this. And I just don't know of anything that works quite the same way. I mean, it's its own system. Again, has its own suits, and here's the protagonist. So just, it's a very unique system, and it is definitely an irreplaceable deck from my library. That's just, nothing quite is going to hit like this, the Threadbound Oracle. Okay, so next we have, this is like a very, very new Woodland Wardens. I feel like I've seen so many walkthroughs of this. I know people, this is fairly new, so people have like just been getting to know this, as I have been doing the same thing. Again, I've got animal oracle decks, not too many. I mean, I definitely have, you know, decks that feature animals. And then of course, like I was saying, herbs and plants, you know, we have those decks. This, but this, you know, is very unique in that it features a plant and an animal together. So there's both of those energies are combined within the cards. And in the guidebook, both of those energies are playing off of each other. And I find that that's very unique. I don't have anything in one deck that basically fits an herbal deck and an animal deck completely. There's nothing else in my collection that would fit. I do have the illustrated herbiary, crystallary, and bestiary. So when we combine and make the mega deck, I like to call it the mega deck, you know, definitely that sort of fills the same, but it's not this in the cards. Like, so there's a bestiary card and a crystallary and an herbiary card, but they don't combine them. So I find that I've been finding that this deck might actually replace other plant and herb decks and animal decks that I have in my collection, because I feel like with this you're getting both in each card, and I feel like I won't have a need to use other animal and herb / plant decks. And I have followed this artist Jessica Rue for a long time. I have like purchased, you know, off Society 6. I have tote bags, I have prints, I have mugs. I've loved her artwork for a long time, so I really connect with this, and I feel like for me this will definitely become, or has become, or is becoming an irreplaceable deck, in that this is going to replace all those other herb decks and animal decks, and it's probably just going to be this one. I absolutely love it. I love all the animals, like how inclusive it is in terms of the animals and the plants. So I just feel like it will definitely is going to hold that special place where this will, you know, become the animal and plant deck that I use. And like I said, just having those energies combined in each card makes this an irreplaceable deck for me. I just love it. You know, it's definitely been such an awesome addition. And like I said, probably gonna end up replacing, you know, some of the decks I have. So this will be the irreplaceable deck. So let's see. So next I have a tarot deck. So this is the Odins Playbook tarot. This is by Danielle Norman. So this deck, while it does follow a Rider-Waite-Smith structure, definitely. You can definitely see it in the cards. And, you know, it definitely does. And actually, this deck is in order because I'm planning on filming a walkthrough of it. So I think it's pretty much still in order. But this deck, obviously, it's a Norse theme deck. And it does feature the runes, like in each card there is a rune association, and I definitely do not have another tarot deck in my library, and I'm sure there may be one. There's none that I know of that would really fill that Viking slash Norse slash runes included in the card, you know, theme. If that's like the wrong word, I don't know. But I definitely feel like there's nothing that fills the space like this deck. It's Norse, you know, through and through. It's Viking themed. It's Norse mythology. And it, like I said, each card has a rune association, which I do not have. There's no decks that incorporate runes, none that I have. So this, if I want to pull in Norse Viking energy, this is the deck that I'm definitely going to be reaching for, and there's nothing else that I have that's going to fill that space. So for me, this is an irreplaceable deck just because of the themes incorporated into the deck. I don't have anything else that goes this comprehensive. I may have decks that feature runes in some of the cards or features like figures in Norse mythology, but not as in depth as this one does. And just, you know, the symbolism and again the mythological associations basically make this an irreplaceable deck. It's beautiful, you know, the artwork's beautiful. As I said, it's definitely a Rider-Waite-Smith clone in many ways. But I do not have another Rider-Waite-Smith or otherwise deck that really focuses on this Norse slash Viking energy. And again, includes a rune in a rune association in each one of the cards. So not only, you know, am I using this as a tarot deck, but it's also a way to learn the runes and delve deeper into working with the runes. So for me, this is definitely an irreplaceable deck, as it definitely fills a very specific place in my tarot collection and in my practice with tarot. So that is the Odins Playbook, a Norse Tale Tarot. And that was it was a Kickstarter that I backed. I'm not sure if it's still available. I believe it is, but okay. So the next one, I think actually this was in Kelly's video too. This is the Vision Quest Tarot. So I think Kelly from the Truth and Story actually had featured this in her video too for her hashtag irreplaceable decks. This one I believe is still in order. Yep, I tend to put my decks in order to cleanse them as one way of cleansing them. I reorder them, so a lot of my decks might be in order. But this one is definitely fills a very specific space in my tarot practice, in that I don't think I have any Thoth based. Like this is very Thoth. It's like loosely, I feel like probably loosely based on the Thoth, but I don't have any Thoth decks because I don't read Thoth. So this for me is definitely more of an oracle deck because of the keywords, and it's very, to me, it has more of an oracle feel. I definitely don't have anything else in my collection that is as, you know, featuring, you know, Native American and indigenous people, and especially like the North American sort of indigenous tribes and society and culture. I don't have anything that really fits that space. And this is really the deck that does that for me. And like Kelly had talked about, it has a very ancestral feel, and it's, you know, very good for that sort of tapping into that ancestral, primeval, you know, sort of feeling. And again, the keywords, you know, to me, it reads more like an oracle deck, and I use it more in that space. But it definitely is irreplaceable in that I don't have anything that quite reads, you know, like this. It's beautiful. I mean, I love it. I love the artwork and the depictions. And again, you know, the keywords are it's its own system. It's definitely, not Rider-Waite-Smith in any way, shape, or form. It's very different. And to me, this is irreplaceable in that I don't have anything that taps into this type of ancestor energy. And again, this type of, Native American and indigenous people, especially to where I'm from and where I live, this taps into that energy of the land that I live on, which we know, is land that is stolen and was not ours. And, so to me, it taps into that energy. It helps me to connect in that way. When I've learned about our, the history of the land that I live on right now and where I live in my part of the country, this deck helps me to tap into that energy, and helps me to, understand, some of the history of the land that I live on. And there's no other deck in my collection that, that does that. This is definitely irreplaceable for doing that and helping me with that type of work. And also acting as, more of an oracle, not so much a tarot deck. But it is gorgeous, and I love it. And again, it's very, very unique and definitely an irreplaceable deck in my collection. And that's the Vision Quest Tarot. So next up, and it's really no surprise, is the Tarot of the Hidden Realm. This, is not a surprise if anyone has watched any of my other videos, which there's not that many of them, but if you've watched any of them, this deck probably has been in almost every single one of them. So this is one of my literally my favorite decks. I've had it, for a very long time. And yes, it's a mass market deck, and some may say, like, how is this irreplaceable? But for me, the energy, the artwork, the feeling, just the way I use this deck, I don't have anything else. There's nothing else that will come close to this for being a deck that really forces me as a person to, to kind of like look and study and look at the cards and really focus and use my intuition. And we know, like, everyone has talked about this deck about how, it's so up close, like it's not narrative. There's not that like huge scene. You're zoomed in. It's like you have to imagine what's going on around this character, like this 10 of Swords, like who is she looking at? Like, what is happening around her? And I don't have any other decks that force me to quite do that the way this one does. The way it makes me develop a story for the people, the creatures, and the scenes. Like, I have to set the scene about what's happening. And while the guidebook is wonderful, I love the guidebook. I've read it cover to cover. It's one of those guidebooks that, like, I feel like you should, if you have this deck, because it's going to help you understand, what the artist, why, the artwork she made and for each card and the associations there. But this deck is, I'm pretty sure I spoke about this for like workhorse decks in pathworking. It's definitely the one that makes me do that. The only other one I think that I have that kind of comes close is the Forest of Enchantment Tarot. It's a different energy. Like, that's like a Rider-Waite-Smith clone with some changes. It kind of has its own system, but for me, this deck is, because it's so intimate and it has that up close and personal feel, you are zoomed in. I don't have anything else in my collection that's like that. This is definitely irreplaceable. I could never replace this deck. And I know, like, a lot of people talk about like Fae energy and like, what does that really mean for you? Like, what does the Fae and Fae energy look like to you? And like, so many people talk about Tarot of the She, you know, which is an amazing deck. I don't have it because Tarot of the She, from what I've seen, is not how I depict the Fae in my head. I don't know. It does have serious Fae, like primeval, like primal, like energy, and like also the Hush Tarot. Like I know Kelly from the Truth and Story, you know, spoke about the Hush Tarot, which I had and rehomed because I just couldn't connect with it. Probably because this to me is my Fae deck, and it always will be. So I think that's why I sort of like the Hush Tarot. Like I just couldn't, it's so like far off and far away from the tarot, which is fine. And it's beautiful. Like the artwork, it wasn't that. It's just, I feel like I was never going to use it because I have this one and like, this is it for me. So this, not necessarily just a favorite. Like this is definitely a favorite, but it's falling under those irreplaceable decks because of the artwork and that zoomed in feeling, and you know that it forces me to use my intuition. It forces me to come up with, you know, what's going on behind the scenes of these cards. It makes me think, it makes me feel, it makes me happy, it makes me scared, it makes me confused. Like it's just irreplaceable in the feelings that it gives me and the joy it gives me, and you know, how it challenges me. And I just, yeah, it's definitely an irreplaceable deck because of all those things. There's nothing that comes close to filling the same space that it does in my tarot collection, in my library of decks. No, nothing ever will come close to that for me. And now really the ones that I have left are very specific to my spiritual practice, if that makes sense. And my beliefs, my spiritual beliefs. So these, you know, kind of fill a very specific space in my practice, and they're irreplaceable because there's nothing that really even comes close to that, you know, in my collection. So this is the Sacred Ireland Celtic Moon Oracle. So this is because of my ancestry, my heritage, you know, I work with Celtic deities. I've been studying Celtic mythology. It's a big part of my spiritual practice, and therefore like there's a big part of my collection that reflects that, and that are tools that I use. So this is very specific to the land of Ireland. So it features not only like goddesses and deities and symbols, you know, of the Celtic world, but also places, sacred sites in Ireland. So I use these, I use these a lot for like journaling, my grimoire, like altar cards. Like I have 3 of these on my altar. I think I pulled them off to put them back in the deck for this video, but I have usually used these on my altar seasonally for, you know, celebrating Sabbats. So this is definitely like, there's nothing I have that comes close. Like, do I have other like Celtic sort of theme decks? Absolutely. But there's nothing that is so specific to Ireland and the land of Ireland, and the sacred sites and the people, and just the feeling and energy. So this deck contains like the moons, so like the different the 12 different moons, and then again, like I said, symbols. So here we have the double spiral, the long night moon, and like I said, here we have you know, some of the deities, the Celtic deities. Here's Grania. So these are deities, Clacha. These are deities that I work with regularly. Ones that I've studied, ones that, you know, I'm still, you know, I'm still studying, I'm still learning about, but these resonate with me on a level that's completely different than anything else I have. So this is definitely irreplaceable because there's nothing that, you know, really comes close to the all-encompassing feeling that this deck brings. So here we have some of here we have the autumn equinox. So it includes like the sabbats and esbats. So it's definitely, you know, a deck that I use in so many different ways, like I was saying, as altar cards, and they're usually figured, you know, pretty prominently in my sacred space on a daily basis and seasonally. And, you know, for the wheel of the year, like I use this in my practice with the wheel of the year. I use this, you know, all the time. So this is definitely irreplaceable. I could never find anything quite like this, and there's nothing that could, you know, replace this. There's nothing else that I use, you know, that relates this way. So that's the Sacred Ireland Celtic Moon Oracle. Yeah, it's definitely like probably one of my most used decks. And along those same lines, the next deck that I consider irreplaceable is this very large and long deck. This is the Celtic Goddess Oracle. So this is by Judith Shaw. So because I work with the divine feminine, I work with goddess energy. I have a goddess-centered practice. I have goddess decks. I've had many goddess decks that I have rehomed. I've had, you know, there's goddess decks that I, you know, that I use, but there's none that fit the space for me in my spiritual practice like this. This is specifically Celtic goddesses, some very obscure, very ancient, very old, you know, goddesses. And the book that comes with it is absolutely amazing in terms of providing the story for each goddess, pronunciations of their names, their divinatory meanings, and just how you can incorporate working with them into your practice. It's, again, one of like my most used. Right now I have 3 goddesses up in my sacred space because I was using them, working with them at Litha for midsummer, for the midsummer equinox. I use these like all the time, and there's nothing else that comes close to it in my collection. Like I said, goddess decks, goddess energy, decks that focus on goddess energy. This one is the one that is completely irreplaceable because it's Celtic goddess specific, and that's my ancestry. That's you know, what I connect with. It's what I tap into. It's the deities that I work with very specifically. So here we have Neve. I mean, these you know, some of these are, you know, well known, you know, goddesses, and some of them are not. Some of them are very again, like I said, obscure, very old deities, you know, and it's wonderful to be able to learn about them and to incorporate them into my practice. These cards are very like long, so they're very big, and again, I use these mostly as altar, to meditate, for my grimoire, for reflections. RTO is a goddess that I work with and connect with on a very deep level. So these, you know, these cards, these images mean so much to me because they provide that connection to my ancestry and the energies that I work with. So this deck is completely irreplaceable. There's nothing else, you know, that I have that incorporates all of these deities and these Celtic. We have like some Gaulish deities that, you know, again, they're very old and very ancient. And I've done my ancestry DNA. I did the ancestry DNA several years ago, but I've also done what's called my True Ancestry. It's another site that you can plug in. You can download your DNA profile and upload it into their site, and it pinpoints the your, like what ancient population your ancestors belong to. So it was amazing to delve into that and to really tap into like very specific regions, which then allowed me to research those regions and the deities that were worshipped thousands and thousands of years ago. And many of them that are in this deck are from those regions that my ancient ancestors are from. So if you've never heard of it, it's called My True Ancestry, and it is an amazing site. Be warned, because you will go down the rabbit hole of this site and like never come out. I've spent hours on it. It's amazing. You know, they link your DNA to archaeological digs from around the world. So specimens and remains that they found, you know, that you share DNA with, they link you to those sites. It's absolutely amazing. I'll try to put it in the description box. If anyone is like a genealogy and like an ancestry like fanatic like I am, it's just amazing. So definitely, you know, something to check out if you're interested in that. But yeah, this deck is, you know, is basically my spiritual practice in like a deck, if that makes sense. But this one and the Sacred Ireland Celtic Moon. But this one is just goddess, you know, it's just goddess specific, and there's nothing in my collection that comes close to this. This is completely irreplaceable. I use it every day. So it's definitely irreplaceable because of how often I use it and just what it does for me and what it fills, you know, that space it fills in my spiritual practice. So let's see, I have two more. So the next one is a little obscure. I think it's, this is definitely out of print, but this is another one that's just very specific. It has a very specific purpose, and there's nothing else. It is an oracle deck. It's actually two oracle decks combined into one. So this is the Well-Worn Path. So it's the Well-Worn Path, and then we have the Hidden Path. So these are by Raven Gormasi and Stephanie Taylor, and the art's by Mickey Mueller. So these, unfortunately, and I apologize, are definitely out of print. I'm trying to see what the copyright date. I've had these for so long. So I feel like it's 2005 is the copyright on this. So this is a deck that is, it's kind of specific to, I don't want to say it's just like the Wiccan religion, because it's really witches and pagans and that can use this deck. But it's basically, it's a reflection of those like spiritual traditions and ancient and modern like pagan practices. And basically it's sort of like a teaching deck. Like it's using like imagery for like path working and for lessons designed to like basically explore like the mysteries of the old ways and the old paths. So it's very specific. I don't have anything else, again, that comes close to this deck in terms of its like makeup and the way it's set up. Here we have the Oak King and just everything that it encompasses. Holly King. So this says like sacred site. So it really includes so many different like teachings of not just Wicca, but witchcraft in general and that pagan path. So, and they, like I said, these are two decks that are basically like you can combine into one deck. But it like teaches you about the Wheel of the Year. It teaches you about, the Sabbats. And so really like when I was a young witch and I was, just starting out on my path, which was probably about 10 years before I got this deck. But this deck really kind of helped me to learn and kind of decide for myself what spiritual practices, what parts of like this spiritual path I can incorporate into my own and make my own. So here we have like drawing down the moon. These are very specific practices that, you know, some of them can be seen in the Wiccan religion. You know, some of them are just pagan ideas. You know, here we have Yule, the winter solstice. These are not, you know, only specific to people who practice the Wiccan religion. So you can connect, you know, with these on just, it's definitely a teaching deck. And it's definitely, there's nothing else that I have in my collection that really, you know, encompasses everything that's in this deck. And like the fact that it is really like an all-encompassing introduction to, you know, pagan spirituality and the different tenets and the different, you know, holidays they celebrate and the rituals. And again, like I said, it is out of print and I feel bad. I always feel bad like sharing out of print decks, but it's such an amazing collection, and it's like totally irreplaceable. It's not something I think that I could ever find. You know, there's definitely nothing I have now. I don't think there's anything I've ever seen that encompasses like everything that this deck does. Like I said, it's not, you know, it's not so much like divinatory as more a study and a learning. Here we have Fairy Door. It just, there's like concepts and it just helps you on your path, like I said, on how to adopt parts of, you know, all of these spiritual and practices into your own personal practice. Because I believe that like you literally don't have to accept everything, you know, that is in like witchcraft books and pagan spirituality books. Like you don't have to agree with it. If it doesn't feel right for you, then you leave that and you move on to something else and you incorporate something that does feel right. So this deck, just like I said, it's definitely irreplaceable. There's nothing like it in my collection. It's fabulous. Mickey Mueller, God, I just love her art. I just love it. That's another Etsy shop that I'm often frequenting, and I'm just so happy that I have this, that I hung on, like I held on to it, because it's definitely irreplaceable. I mean, it certainly is now, because I don't think you can get it. If you can, it's like on eBay for like a ridiculous amount of money. But it's definitely irreplaceable. It's something like I said, I don't have anything else like this. There's, like I said, both books that come with it. It's definitely a study teaching deck. Anyone interested in pagan, you know, spirituality, it's irreplaceable, definitely. I definitely don't have the boxes anymore. I just have a bag that I keep it in. Keep the book separate, because this has traveled a long time with me, and I'm so glad I still have it, because like I said, it's definitely irreplaceable. And the last one that I have to share is relatively new to my collection, and I cannot tell you how happy and excited I am that I finally have this, because I've been hunting this down for years. This is also out of print, and sometimes you find it, you know, being sold for very large sums of money. But I happen to be able to get this secondhand off of someone selling it on Facebook, and I'm like thrilled. I like snatched it up. I'm so excited. So I haven't had a chance to really study this. This is going to be a study deck, but this definitely, there's nothing else. This is why I've been on the hunt for it for so long, because there's really nothing else that, you know, will come close to this deck that I currently have. And it is very, very specific to Celtic mythology and concepts, the Celtic language. It features Celtic alphabets and old Irish alphabets, symbolism, figures from, you know, Celtic and Irish mythology, Welsh mythology. It has its complete own system. It has its own suits, you know, in terms of the names. They still represent like the elements, you know, fire, air, earth, water. But it has its complete own system. The names of the suits are in Gaelic, which is an impossible language to speak. I tried learning it. It is very hard. But it also features, again, like I said, figures from Irish and Celtic mythology. And it's really based on the Tuatha De Danann, the fairy folk that inhabited Ireland many, 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 many years ago, and are thought to have, gone underground to the underworld, gone to unseen by humans. But these are the very first ancestors of Ireland and of the Celtic world. And this is very specific to working with that pantheon of gods and goddesses, and very specific to Celtic mythology and mythological tales. And it's just one that, like I said, could never be replaced. There's nothing like this. I haven't seen a deck or had a deck that, of course I have Celtic decks that, feature, deities from Celtic mythology, or like the myths and legends, but not like this. These are very specific and, very primordial and primeval energy in terms of the thousands and thousands of years ago, that these people and figures were thought to have existed. So it is based on like the bardic tradition. So it has a very druidic feel to it. But yeah, it is very specific. Now that I finally have it, it is completely irreplaceable. I will be studying this deck for a long time because it's quite extensive, and learning, I know many of them because I have, studied, but it goes so much deeper than anything that I've studied or researched. So this is going to take me a long time to delve into, but I'm so excited to finally have it. I've only had it for a few weeks. It's definitely irreplaceable because there's nothing else quite like it. And I don't think that there ever will be. I even bought, I got a used copy off Thrift Books of the Fairy Wicca Book 1, which is Theory and Magic, a book of shadows and light. And this book I've delved into. It's the ancient oral fairy tradition of Ireland. So I was so thankful to get a used copy of this book off of Thrift Books for about $8. I was thrilled because I'm going to be using this, incorporating this with the Fairy Wicca Tarot, just to delve deeper, into my spiritual practice. The way Tarot of the Hidden Realm is like my Fae deck, the energy, this is the true fairy energy, the fairy people of Ireland, the queen of the fairies, Danu or Dana or Donna. There are many different pronunciations, and her people, the Tuatha De Danann, who are named for her. This is just basically, the ultimate. I don't want to call it the OG, but to me it's like the OG Fae energy, because it is so in-depth and it encompasses all there is about Celtic mythology and the original peoples of Ireland and the Celtic world. And I'm thrilled to have it. It's irreplaceable. I'm going to stop going on about it now because I can just keep going on about it. So I'm going to stop going on about it, but I'm so thrilled to have it. I can't thank the person enough who sold it to me. It was very fairly priced, and it included shipping, and I'm just so thankful to have it. So Fairy Wicca Tarot, irreplaceable, out of print. I'm sorry, but I definitely had to put that in my irreplaceable decks. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you have some of these decks. I'm so looking forward to watching more of the hashtag irreplaceable decks, because I really love seeing, what's irreplaceable for people, and how it fits in, and how it holds like a special place in their tarot library. So I look forward to watching more of those, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.